My ex cheated and tried to keep my dog, so I took him back through court and left her with the silence. She deserved. I'm a 28-year-old guy, and for a while I thought I'd found the one. Her name was Sarah, smart, funny, spontaneous in the best ways. We met at a friend's housewarming, and within minutes I was pulled into her orbit. She laughed like the world owed her joy, and for someone like me, quiet, cautious, always second-guessing love, it felt impossible not to fall. For the first couple of years, everything felt easy. We shared the same dumb humor, late-night takeout habits, and obsession with dogs. When we adopted Max, a golden retriever with a crooked ear and sad brown eyes, it felt like sealing our little family together. I remember the first night he slept curled between us on the couch. Sarah whispered, "We're officially parents now," and I laughed, believing every word. But slowly, that version of her started slipping away. The warmth that used to fill our mornings was replaced by silence and screens. She started staying out later, saying she was meeting coworkers for drinks. Her phone became glued to her hand, face tilted down, eyes darting when I'd walk into the room. Once, when I asked if everything was okay, she just sighed, "You worry too much?" like I'd just accused her of something ridiculous. I wanted to believe her. I really did. I'd tell myself, she's stressed. Everyone changes a little. But then, I'd see the shift in her body language, how she'd pull away when I tried to hug her, how she'd laugh too hard at texts she wouldn't show me. Even Max started acting differently around her, watching her leave with this quiet sadness I couldn't explain. I remember one night, lying awake while she pretended to be asleep beside me and feeling this strange, hollow ache. It was the first time I realized something was cracking beneath the surface, something I wasn't ready to face yet, and I wish I'd listened to that feeling sooner. I kept telling myself it was just a phase. Every couple hits rough patches, right? That's what people say. But the truth is, deep down, I already knew we weren't in a phase. We were in a free fall. I was just too scared to admit it. Some nights, Sarah would come home smelling like cheap wine and perfume that wasn't hers. Not the soft floral scent she used to wear, but something sharper, unfamiliar. I'd ask, "Rough night?" And she'd shrug, eyes half on her phone, mumbling, "Just work stuff." Then she'd disappear into the shower, leaving me alone with Max, who would rest his head on my knee like he could feel the tension thickening the air. Max became my anchor. When she started pulling away, he filled the silence. I'd take him for long walks after dinner, just the two of us under the streetlights, my hand absently running over his fur while my mind tried to stitch together the pieces of us that were falling apart. He'd look up at me with those soft, trusting eyes, and I'd think, at least one of us still believes this home is safe. There were small moments when I'd catch glimpses of the woman I fell for. Her smile while feeding Max scraps, the way she'd hum while cooking, but they were fleeting, like flickers of light before a storm. The coldness always returned, stronger each time. The last straw came one Friday night. She said she'd be working late, but her boss posted a team photo on Instagram. She wasn't there. No office lights. No coworkers. Just silence when I called her. 3 times, back to back. I sat on the couch that night with Max curled beside me, his paw over my leg, and felt the truth sink in like a stone. Something was happening behind my back, and the woman I thought I'd build a future with was already halfway gone. I just didn't know yet how deep the betrayal would cut. I tried to shake it off. Maybe she really was busy. Maybe I was being paranoid. But the excuses started stacking up like bricks around my sanity. The client meeting ran late. I'm grabbing a drink with coworkers. Don't. Wait up. Each one chipped away at something inside me. Until I started walking on. Eggshells in my own home. Max could feel it too. Dogs always can. He'd sit near the door when Sarah was gone, whining softly, tail drooping. When she came back, his excitement faded the moment she ignored him. I remember crouching beside him one night and whispering, "Guess it's just you and me, buddy." It was half a joke, half a prayer. One evening, I noticed her phone light up on the counter while she was in the shower. The name on the screen wasn't familiar. Evan. My stomach twisted. I told myself not to look, but then another message flashed. Last night was worth it. Same time tomorrow? My hands started shaking. I stared at that text until the light dimmed and the room fell back into silence. When she came out, towel wrapped around her, she caught me looking at her phone. "What are you doing?" She snapped. "Nothing," I muttered. "Just, your phone went off." She frowned, grabbed it, and hissed, "You don't trust me anymore, do you?" I opened my mouth but couldn't find the words. She stormed past me, muttering something about how this relationship is suffocating. That night, she slept facing the wall. I lay there staring at the ceiling, heart pounding, trying to convince myself it was a misunderstanding. But deep down, I already knew. Once you start hiding your phone, once you stop talking, love becomes a ghost haunting the rooms you used to laugh in. Still, I wasn't ready to let go. I wanted proof, or maybe just denial strong enough to keep pretending. Either way, I was about to get both it happened 2 weeks later. Sarah said she was spending the weekend at her mom's because they hadn't seen each other in ages. I remember forcing a smile, pretending it didn't sting that she hadn't asked me to come along. After she left, I tried to distract myself, ordered takeout, played with Max, binged some old sitcoms, but the air in the house felt off, heavy, like it knew something I didn't. That night, I scrolled through social media, half out of boredom, half out of anxiety. That's when I saw it. Her coworker, Evan, had posted a photo of a champagne bottle on a hotel table. In the corner of the reflection, you could see a woman's hand. The same nail polish Sarah was wearing when she left. My stomach dropped. My brain refused to connect the dots, but my heart already had. By the next morning, I couldn't sit still. I told myself I was being crazy, but I grabbed my keys anyway. The drive downtown was a blur of anger and disbelief. My hands were slick with sweat as I pulled into the hotel parking lot, scanning for her car. And there it was, our silver hatchback, parked under the same flickering light we'd once stood beneath after adopting Max. Walked inside, every step heavier than the last. When the elevator doors opened on the 5th floor, I saw her, laughing as she exited a room, hair messy, holding hands with him. She froze the moment our eyes met. "Are you serious, Sarah?" I choked out. "Here." Her face twisted, not with guilt, but annoyance. "What are you doing here, Mark? You're embarrassing yourself." "Embarrassing myself?" I repeated, my voice shaking. "You're cheating on me." She rolled her eyes. "You're overreacting. We were done long before this." It felt like the floor vanished beneath me. Every memory, every promise, it all burned in that hallway. I didn't even respond. I just turned around and left. When I got home, Max ran to me, tail wagging, completely unaware of the wreckage I'd just walked through. I knelt down, hugged him so tight he whimpered, and for the first time, I cried. Not because I'd lost her, but because I realized how much I'd ignored to keep her. And the worst part, that wasn't even the end of her cruelty. The days after that felt like sleepwalking through wreckage. Every room in the apartment carried her fingerprints. Her perfume clinging to the pillows, her jacket still hanging by the door, her laughter echoing in my head like a cruel memory on loop. I boxed up her things slowly, not out of spite, but because each item felt like a goodbye I hadn't consented to. Sarah didn't even call. No apology, no explanation. Just silence. The woman I once thought I'd marry vanished like she'd never existed. The only thing that kept me grounded was Max. He'd curl beside me on the couch, pressing his warm body against my leg whenever I broke down. He became my therapy, my reason to get out of bed. I'd whisper, "You're my boy, Max. We're gonna be okay," even when I didn't believe it. Weeks passed. I went back to work, tried to rebuild routines. Slowly, the pain dulled into something quieter, ache instead of agony. Then, out of nowhere, Sarah texted, "Hey, I've been thinking. I miss Max. I want to see him." My hands clenched around the phone. Miss Max, not me. Not an ounce of remorse for the way she'd humiliated me, just a sudden interest in the dog she barely fed when she lived here. I took a breath before replying. "He's settled here. It wouldn't be good for him." Her response came seconds later. "You don't get to decide that. We adopted him together. He's mine too." The audacity made my blood boil. She cheated, left, disappeared, and now wanted to rip away the only bit of peace I had left. I ignored her. Days later, she showed up outside my apartment, knocking like nothing had happened. When I didn't answer, she shouted through the door, "You're being selfish, Mark. He needs both of us." I stood there, frozen on the other side, Max growling low beside me. That's when I realized she didn't miss him. She missed control. And she wasn't about to let go easily. After that night, I changed the locks. It felt extreme, but something in Sarah's tone, the mix of entitlement and bitterness, made me uneasy. For a while, things went quiet. Then the texts started again. Long paragraphs about how I'd stolen her baby, how I was cruel for keeping Max away from the person who loved him first. I stopped replying, but she didn't stop sending them. Some were guilt trips, others pure venom. I tried to focus on work, but every vibration from my phone made my stomach twist. Even my friends started noticing the toll. "Man, she's obsessed," one of them said after reading her messages. "You need to protect yourself." I took their advice. I dug out the adoption papers from the shelter, the ones with my name clearly listed as the primary owner. I kept screenshots of our text exchanges and even started documenting everything, just in case. Still, it felt surreal, like I was preparing for a war over a dog when all I'd ever wanted was peace. Then, one afternoon, Sarah showed up at the park. I was throwing a tennis ball for Max when I heard her voice behind me. "Wow," she said, arms crossed, sunglasses hiding her eyes. "You really couldn't even let me see him." I froze. "Sarah, this isn't the time or place." She stepped closer, voice rising. "You're pathetic. You think you can just erase me from his life? He's my dog, too." "Walk away," I warned quietly. Max barked, sensing my tension. For a moment, I thought she'd back off. Instead, she snapped a photo of us and said, "You'll regret this." Then she turned and walked away. That night, I stared at the photo she'd posted online with the caption, "Some people steal what they can't love." It wasn't about Max anymore. It was about punishment. And I knew she was just getting started. I didn't realize then that her next move would drag both of us into something much darker and much harder to escape. A week later, I came home to a letter taped to my door, "Notice of legal action." At first, I thought it was some mistake, maybe a parking ticket or overdue bill. But when I opened it, my stomach dropped. Sarah had filed a custody claim for Max. She actually hired a lawyer. The document called him shared property acquired during cohabitation. My dog, my best friend, was being reduced to property. I called her, voice trembling with disbelief. "You really did this?" She sounded smug. "You left me no choice. You're being unreasonable." "Unreasonable. You cheated, Sarah. You walked out." "Doesn't change the fact that I have rights," she snapped, her tone clipped and cruel. "See you in court." Then she hung up. I stood there in the silence that followed, Max's leash still in my hand, and felt my chest cave in. It wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was fury. The woman who betrayed me was now using the one innocent soul who loved us both as leverage. The next few days were chaos. I met with a lawyer, a calm, gray-haired man named Harris who didn't sugarcoat anything. "Pets are treated like property," he said. "But if we can prove you're the primary caregiver, food, vet, expenses, you'll have a strong case." I spent hours gathering everything, receipts, vet visits, photos, even texts where Sarah admitted she didn't have time to take care of Max. Every piece of evidence felt like a small shield against her manipulation. But at night, when the house got quiet, fear crept in. What if the court didn't care? What if she won? Max lay at my feet while I typed statements and organized folders. I looked down at him, his tail thumping softly against the floor, and whispered, "I'm not losing you. Not again." That was the moment something inside me shifted. I wasn't the heartbroken guy she discarded anymore. I was a man with a purpose, but I didn't yet realize. Sarah wasn't done fighting dirty. Not even close. Sarah didn't wait for the courtroom to start her war. She took it online. One morning, I woke up to a flood of messages. Friends sending screenshots from her social media. She'd posted a long, teary caption with a photo of her holding an old picture of Max. When you love something deeply and it's ripped away by someone cruel, you learn who they really are. Hundreds of comments poured in, her friends calling me heartless, a pet thief, even abusive. I felt sick reading them. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Some people I hadn't talked to in years messaged me things like, "What the hell happened between you two?" She wasn't just trying to take Max, she was trying to destroy my reputation. I wanted to post the truth, to defend myself, to scream about what she'd done, but Harris warned me, "Don't engage. The court will see everything. Stay calm," so I stayed quiet. I let her narrative spread, even as it made me look like a monster. At work, people whispered. My boss even pulled me aside, concerned about the drama I was bringing. Nights were the worst. Lying awake, scrolling through her posts, watching her weaponize sympathy like an art form. She'd post things like, "Some people don't deserve loyalty. Some don't deserve love." Then she'd add a picture of Max from when we were together, implying he was gone because of me. But the worst came when mutual friends started choosing sides. One even texted me, "Man, just give her the dog. It's not worth this." They didn't understand. Max wasn't a bargaining chip. He was my family. I started documenting her posts, every screenshot, every lie. Harris told me, "Let her dig her own grave." Still, it hurt, watching someone you once loved turn into a stranger with a vendetta. And then, just when I thought she couldn't sink lower, she showed up at my workplace. Not to talk, to humiliate. I'll never forget the morning of the hearing. My hands shook as I clipped Max's photo onto the folder of documents, receipts, vet bills, adoption forms, all proof that he was mine. My lawyer, Harris, met me at the courthouse steps. "Stay calm," he said quietly. "She'll try to provoke you. Don't give her that power." I nodded, even though my heart felt like it was about to explode out of my chest. When Sarah walked in, it was like watching a stranger wearing her face. Perfectly styled hair, trembling lip, tissues in hand. She looked fragile, rehearsed even. As soon as the judge entered, she started crying softly. "Your Honor," she said, "I just want what's fair. He took my dog, the one I raised since he was a puppy. He's all I have left," I wanted to shout. "You ignored him for months." But Harris put a hand on my arm, subtle but firm. Instead, he calmly presented our case. The adoption papers listing me as the owner, proof of payments, vet records under my name. He even showed text messages where she admitted she didn't have time to take care of Max. When it was my turn to speak, I looked at the judge and said, "Your Honor, Max isn't property to me. He's family. I didn't steal him. I saved him. From the shelter and from the chaos that came after." My voice cracked near the end, but I meant every word. Then came Sarah's downfall. When questioned about the timeline of her care, she slipped up, claiming she took Max to the vet months before we even adopted him. The judge frowned, glancing at the paperwork. Her lawyer's smile faded instantly. After what felt like hours, the judge sighed and said the words I'd been praying for. "The court recognizes Mark as the sole legal owner of the dog." Sarah's face twisted, tears instantly replaced by rage. She muttered something under her breath as the gavel hit the desk. I didn't look back when I walked out. Harris clapped my shoulder and said, "You did good, kid." But as I stepped outside, I felt no victory, just exhaustion. And somehow, I knew Sarah wasn't done making me pay when the verdict came down in my favor. Everyone told me to celebrate, but there was nothing to celebrate. I'd won Max, yes, but the process had drained every ounce of joy from me. The courthouse air still clung to my clothes as I drove home in silence. Max sat in the back seat, head out the window, blissfully unaware that his fate had just been decided by strangers in suits. That night, I fed him his favorite meal, chicken and rice, and watched him eat with that happy, innocent focus only dogs have. It was the first time in weeks that I felt something close to peace. But then my phone lit up again. A message from Sarah. "You think this is over? You humiliated me." I stared at the screen, the old rage stirring. For a moment, I almost replied. But then I remembered the courtroom. The tears that were more performance than pain. The way she twisted everything to make herself the victim. I put the phone face down and walked away. Still, the silence she left behind wasn't comforting. It was haunting. I kept expecting her to show up, to scream, to take another shot at my sanity. For days, every knock on the door made my chest tighten. My friends said I should block her, move on. But cutting off someone who once shared your bed, your plans, your life, it doesn't happen overnight. Then, one evening, I found a note on my windshield. Just one sentence. You don't deserve happiness. No signature. No handwriting I didn't already know. I tore it up right there in the parking lot, my hands shaking, breath uneven. Max barked from the window upstairs as if reminding me that I wasn't alone. I sat on the couch that night with him curled against me, thinking about how love can turn into hatred so quickly, how something once beautiful can rot until it poisons everything it touches. But even then, I had no idea that my lowest point was still waiting for me. Quiet, patient, and about to hit harder than anything before. A few weeks after the verdict, I thought the worst was behind me. Sarah had gone quiet, and for a moment I let myself believe she'd finally moved on. Life started to look normal again. I'd go to work, come home, walk Max, eat dinner, and scroll mindlessly through my phone until I fell asleep. But underneath that fragile routine, I felt hollow, like I'd won the battle but lost something fundamental in myself. Then, one night, it all came crashing back. I came home from work to find my front door slightly open. My heart dropped. Max wasn't barking. He always barked when I came in. I rushed inside, calling his name, my voice cracking, "Max? Buddy, where are you?" For a few terrifying seconds, there was nothing. Then I heard a faint whimper from the bedroom. He was there, trembling under the bed, surrounded by shredded paper and broken glass. Someone had thrown a rock through the window. My stomach twisted as I picked up the rock. There was a note tied around it. One word, written in her handwriting. Thief. I sat on the floor, holding Max, feeling the adrenaline fade into something heavier. Numb despair. I called the police, filed a report, but I could tell they didn't take it seriously. Probably some ex-drama, the officer said, almost smirking. They took my statement, then left me standing in the shards of my own peace. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house sounded like her footsteps. Every shadow in the hallway felt like her eyes watching. I sat by Max until morning, hand resting on his fur just to feel his steady breathing. That's when I realized how far I'd fallen, living in fear of someone who used to whisper love in my ear. I wasn't just heartbroken anymore. I was broken. And that's when something inside me snapped, not in anger, but in resolve. If she wanted to destroy me, I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. I didn't know it yet, but that night was the end of her control, and the beginning of my quiet revenge. The next morning, I packed up what was left of my fear and replaced it with purpose. I wasn't going to live like a victim anymore. I boarded up the window, changed my locks, again, and started looking for a new apartment, a place untouched by her shadow. Within a week, Max and I moved into a smaller place across town. Nothing fancy, just quiet, safe, and ours. The first night there, I remember sitting on the floor, eating takeout straight from the container while Max slept beside me, his head on my lap. For the first time in months, the silence didn't feel threatening. It felt peaceful. I started therapy. My therapist, a calm woman named Dana, said something that stuck with me. You can't control what she does, but you can control how long she still lives rent-free in your head. That hit hard. So I made a choice to stop talking about Sarah, to stop checking her social media, to stop feeding the ghost of who she used to be. Instead, I poured everything into Max and rebuilding my life. We joined a weekend dog rescue group. I met new people, real people who cared about animals, not drama. It was strange at first, laughing again, letting joy feel normal. Every little step forward felt like rebellion against the version of me she'd tried to break. One night, while walking Max along the river, I caught our reflection in the water, just me and him under the city lights. I realized that all the noise, all the pain, had finally faded. I wasn't the man she left behind anymore. I was someone stronger, calmer, untouchable. And the best part? She hated silence. It drove her mad. I hadn't spoken to her since the police report, hadn't replied to a single message. But deep down, I knew she wouldn't stay gone forever. Some people can't stand losing their audience, and when she finally came knocking again, I'd be ready. It happened months later, just when peace had started to feel natural again. I was brewing coffee on a quiet Saturday morning when my phone buzzed. The name on the screen made my stomach tighten for a second before the calm returned. Sarah. I hadn't heard from her in over 4 months. The message was short. "Can we talk?" "Just once, please." I stared at it for a long time. Old memories tried to creep back in. Her laughter, our early days, the version of her I'd loved before everything rotted. For a moment, I almost felt something like pity. Then I remembered the rock through my window, the sleepless nights, the courtroom lies, and the way she tried to weaponize love. That pity vanished like smoke. I didn't reply. I just muted her number and put the phone face down on the counter. Then I leashed Max and headed to the beach, a place she always hated because she didn't like sand. The irony made me smile. The morning air was cool, the waves slow and steady. Max bounded through the surf, chasing gulls, tail wagging wildly. I sat down in the sand, watching him run free, golden fur glinting in the sunlight. For the first time, I didn't feel like a survivor of her chaos. I felt free of it. Completely. I pulled out my phone, snapped a photo of Max with the ocean behind him, and posted it with a simple caption. "Some things you fight for once, and then never again." No tags. No bitterness. Just truth. The comments poured in, friends cheering me on, others simply leaving hearts, but I didn't care about any of that. The victory wasn't public. It was personal. That evening, as the sun dipped low, Max lay beside me, head on my knee, waves whispering against the shore. I thought about how silence used to scare me, how I once filled it with her voice, her chaos, her noise. Now it felt sacred. Because sometimes the loudest revenge isn't anger or pain, it's peace.